Hi there, this is a day in the life of a small business employment attorney. My name is Scott Shibayama. I'm founder of Vision Law Corporation. So today I've got a actually pretty classic employment and labor challenge. Let me set the stage by saying small restaurant client, about 45 employees. Got a business owner that's involved, but trying not to be the focal point of running the business. So has a general manager that they pay, good money to run the business. And this is a brand new client. He called me early in the week. We set up the first consultation for today. And I just got off a 1-hour call with them. And the problem is they have a 8-year female server that has been apparently acting up more so in the last couple of years than the first 6. This employee, and I guess I got to be careful not to share too much details, but has a familial relationship with the general manager. Most recently complained about a coworker in the kitchen that also does mechanic work for the company, because they have company vehicles. Complained that this person was stalking her, a male stalking her, kind of following her out to the parking lot, looking at her, and kind of vague allegations of the sort. The company owner took care of it, so they thought, and basically changed the shift so they weren't running into each other, was his solution. And basically, things were okay for a little bit, he said. And then a couple weeks ago, suddenly she saw him, happened to see him. He happened to come into work on his day off. She happened to see him and got all up in arms about him stalking her still. And so that's when this owner called me. Turns out that's just the tip of the iceberg, because of course they want to get rid of her, right? As it turns out, I'll explain, there's all these problems she's been creating over the last couple of years. But, this is what they came to me with. And it basically is, what we call she's got herself protected, right? She's engaged in protected activity. And if we were to do something to her, like fire her, then we'd be buying ourselves a potential retaliation claim, right? Because under California law, sunny state of California, she doesn't have to be correct in her view that this stalking is actually occurring, and or if it's actually harassment or not. She just needs to have vocalized that concern, and then just simply by vocalizing it and having in her mind a reasonable belief that she's being stalked, then she's engaged in what the law calls protected activity. If we do anything adverse to her and there's a causal connection between her engaging in the protected activity and the adverse action, then that's called retaliation. Of course, we have some potential defenses from that, but who wants to be sued? So anyway, here's the larger problem. So the owner sets up a call with me and his manager. So 3 of us on the phone call. And everything starts off just fine and calm. But as the talk progresses and I learn more about what this employee is doing, she's creating havoc in the workplace, not only accusing this one guy of harassment, but apparently 3 other male co-workers of harassment. I didn't get into the conversation too much with them as to what they did or how they handled those other complaints, but she's complained about them. Other co-workers are complaining about her, spreading rumors and lies about them. She works with, on average, about 20 co-workers on a regular basis, and half of them have written letters at this point to the owner, complaining about this female server. The general manager, who again has a familial relationship with this server, general manager is number 1 in charge, of course, in the restaurant, is saying that she doesn't respect him, she doesn't follow his directions, and as his directive, she challenges his management, and basically acting like she's running the place. And he as the call progressed, right, this 3-way call, it turns out this general manager is just done with it. He's like, I want her gone. He's just fired up. He's emotional about it. I cannot work with this woman. It's either her or me, basically, is what it came down to on this call, ultimately. Didn't start off that way. Started off very calm. But as we peel back the layers of the onion, so to speak, this is what happens, right? Reality strikes in and people get real. I'm not working with her anymore. So I gave him two options, right? I said, well, one option is you can terminate her right now, but that buys you an automatic retaliation lawsuit. And it's the most legal risk, right? If we were to fire right now, because she just complained, like last week, the second time about this guy allegedly stalking her. And as I always tell my small business clients, once you've been sued, you've already lost. Why? Because even if you win, you have to pay my law firm's fees, or some firm like mine, some lawyer that you hire, their fees, and you spend your time and your emotional capital dealing with this lawsuit. But if you lose, then you get the privilege of paying not only your former employee money damages, right, money, but you also get to pay their attorney's fees, which for most types of claims and for this kind of retaliation claim would have carried automatic attorney's fees payable to her lawyer. We can never get our fees. Just think of it that way, even if we completely win. Well, I told both the owner and the general manager this on the call. Owner totally understood, but it went over the general manager's head, right? He was like, but I just can't work with this person. No can do. I go, well, and we started talking about option two. Option two, way less risk, right? Basically, we'll do the setup, I call it. We will do a process by which ultimately we'll either have the employee that meets our expectations and the employee that we deserve, or that employee will be terminated, but we will have proper documentation in the file, and we'll have gone through a process to give them an opportunity to improve before they're terminated. But if they're terminated, we've significantly reduced the legal risk of an employment wrongful termination case, or specifically retaliation case. If we do it right, we'd have a defense to the retaliation claim. So what's the process? So I told them at least a two-step process, but we're going to have, and by the way, I should say that the general manager has not addressed this with the employee, one-on-one or otherwise, right? Management 101. You have to communicate with your subordinates, and you need to nip these sort of things in the bud. At the end of this video, I'll summarize the tips as to how we can avoid getting into this very classic situation, which is we have a long-term employee who's a disaster. We've done nothing to correct their bad behavior, and suddenly there's the straw that breaks the camel's back, and we just want to fire this person because of emotions, right? We've just had enough. Last straw. Very dangerous. Okay? So anyway, what's the process? Process is we come up with a list of all the problems we're having with this employee, right? Does not respect management, does not allow management to do their job, is spreading rumors in the workplace about coworkers, whatever the laundry list is, only they can come up with it. So they're working on that as we speak, no doubt. But to come up with that list of five items, right, or 10 items, whatever, just all the material problems categorized that we're having with this server. And then what we're going to do is have a meeting, three of them, the owner, the general manager, and this problem employee, sit her down and recalibrate expectations is what I call it. Because one of your rights as an employer is to set expectations and then hold people accountable, right? And actually, if you follow that one rule, it solves a lot of employment and labor law potential issues as well. So set expectations and hold people accountable. So that's step one in the process, something that the general manager, who didn't seem to perceive that it was his job to do, but the general manager has not done any of this to this point, and thereby allowed this problem employee to get absolutely out of control. We did not nip the situation in the bud, so to speak, by setting expectations early and holding her accountable. So here's what we get. We get a disaster. So we sit the employee down. It's our turn to talk. It's our turn to get back our leadership role and let her know that we're in charge, right? And the general manager is going to do the talking and basically go through the list of problems that they are having with her. She doesn't get to talk, just basically they're going through the list of problems. Ultimately, though, when we get through the list of problems, part of the meeting is we need to get the employees buy-in, right? Here are the problems. Do they buy in or not? So we ask, do you understand that these are problems that need to be fixed? And then we give her some opportunity to talk. And like I told them, she might blow a gasket, right? Or she might, just go off the rails. She might even go off the rails sooner than this. And basically, if that's what happens, we just tell her, look, this is exactly what we're talking about. And, you need to calm down and hear us out. Otherwise, this may not be the place for you. She keeps blowing a gasket, keeps going off. I told them, no, you just stay calm. And basically, you could have the check ready already, but go make like you have to go get her final check, take 10 or 15 minutes to do that. Come back and say, very sorry, but today's your last day. Here's your final check. Because in California, when you terminate, you must give the employees their final pay, including any and all vacation and PTO, immediately. So if you're fired, here's your final pay. Otherwise, penalties apply. Anyway, back to the story. On the other hand, she might, the other extreme, and I told them highly unlikely, it sounds like based on what you guys are telling me, but she might listen very closely and say, wow, I didn't really understand that I had these problems. I wish you had brought it to my attention earlier, but thank you for bringing them to my attention now. I'm happy to work on that. And, we're all joking that highly unlikely, but that's the other extreme, right? Potential outcome of this meeting. And there's everything in between. But the point would be, the goal of this meeting is to clearly set the expectations, get the employees buy-in that they're going to fix the problems. And if not, maybe there's a mutual parting of the ways on the spot. But if we can get through, the part where we've got buy-in now and the employee says, okay, fine, even if they're a little defiant, I'll work on it. Okay. Fine, I'll work on it. Okay, well, great. Put them back to work. My client asked me, well, do we give her a deadline? The owner. And I said, no, that's the next step. First thing, just put her back to work. You've had the meeting. Oh, document after the meeting. Give her, in writing, an email. It doesn't have to be super formal, but just here's what we talked about. And you agreed to work in these areas and fix the problems. That's it. Put her back to work and we observe her. Let's see over the next 2 weeks to a month whether the behavior, remarkably and markedly changes. And if it does, that's great. That's a desired result, right? Get the employee that we are entitled to have, one that meets our expectations. That's one of our rights as employers. But more likely, she's doing stuff still that is inconsistent with the behavioral change that we have instructed her to, or the change that we want, right? It's inconsistent with that. And I told them, we're not going to just react and fire on the first instance unless it's a really material, serious misconduct type thing. But let's just observe. We take notes. We observe what's going on. And we're building more of the file of, the problems that she continues to have that we told her she needs to fix. And so I said, have a second meeting, after about probably 30 days, no sooner than 2 weeks. And if things are really going bad, maybe 2 weeks, we're going to have a second meeting. The second meeting is more or less starts off as like a repeat of the first meeting. We met on such and such date and time. We went over these problem areas and you agreed that you were going to fix them. We're sorry to say, but you have not. And here's what's been going on in the last 2 weeks, a month or whatever. And from our perspective, you just continue to have these behavioral issues or performance problems. And so then what we do is, and where my owner's question comes in, right? Do we put a deadline on this? Now it's time for a PIP, right? Performance Improvement Plan. So now it's something formal we're going to put in writing, but we have the meeting again first. We say we're going to put her on a PIP, and then we have the PIP ready, basically, that here are all the 10 things that she needs to work on, was supposed to be working on, has not complied, and therefore we're now upping the ante, if you will, and putting her on a PIP. And the PIP is now, it's formal, it's in writing, and we give her a deadline. And we say, look, you got 30 days to have 0 problems in these 10 areas, 5 areas, whatever it is. And if you do not, or if you do have problems in these areas, then we will take further disciplinary action against you up to and including termination of your employment. Okay? And basically, and we tell her, look, you've got to fix these problems within 30 days immediately, but have no problems within 30 days, and then sustain the improvement thereafter. Otherwise, further disciplinary action will be taken against you up to including discharge of employment. General manager was up in arms about this second approach, which is got to the point where he was saying stuff like, I'm not working with her anymore. It's my body. My body, he kept saying. I don't trust her. I don't, just can't work with her anymore. And I said, but you're the general manager. What are you saying? Are you saying that you don't want to be the general manager as opposed to managing her? Yeah, if that's what it is, I'm not working with her, either her or me. And he was very adamant. And so this was not going well at this point because I have owner on the phone. Oh, by the way, owner was thinking they were going to pass the business along to this general manager, who another classic aspect of this is worked his way up from the bottom in the restaurant to where the owner decided to promote him to general manager about 10 years ago. But no management training, right? No idea that this was really his job to manage this person out of the box, and that really it's his fault that he has the problem that he has on his hands right now. I didn't tell him that, of course. I'm thinking that, but that's the truth, right? I mean, as managers, we own it. Buck stops with us. If we have problems with our workforce, then we've done something wrong, right? We haven't hired the right people. We haven't set expectations. We haven't held people accountable. We've let things slide for 8-10 years, or in this case, 2 years, which is not that long of a time, but 2 years. And then we just have, we've created a monster, basically, right? It's a disaster. She thinks she runs the place and doesn't have to listen to anybody. So anyway, we talked him off the ledge. He got to the place where he kind of understood that, hey, this is just about timing, not about the result. We know you want her gone. Timing. Do we fire her now and buy a lawsuit that we're probably going to lose or have a high degree of risk of losing? Because we have no paper in the file. We haven't talked to her. We haven't held her accountable, told her what her expectations are. No, nothing. So we fire her, retaliation claim, not much of a defense, probably. I mean, we still try, but, odds are higher that we have problems. So do we do that now? Timing. Or can you just wait 30 days, maybe 60 days? And it seems like with this person, we'll get there anyway. Well, we'll get there in a way that reduces your legal risk. Okay? And if you do what I'm saying, follow this process and document it all, then you're going to be in a much better position to defend a lawsuit, which is likely to come anyway, right? But at least you stay as the manager, which the owner had to make sure he hinted several times that, look, I'd much rather keep you than her. And by the way, if you leave, then she wins. And so we had to talk him off the ledge. I think we got him off the ledge. I think he gets that we're a team here, all three of us. And basically, my advice is intended to protect. And I told him, my client is the business, not the owner of the business, not the general manager. Well, kind of the owner of the business because they're the same as the business, but it's a corporation. And really my legal client is the corporation, even though there's a sole shareholder, let's say, of the corporation, which is the owner of the business that was on the call. So anyway, that's my job, to reduce legal risk for employers so they don't step in it. You want to avoid employee lawsuits at all costs. And that's the way to do it, right? So to sum up, fire sooner rather than later. It's one of my mantras. 2, set expectations and hold people accountable. And if we do that early and consistently, then I think a lot of your employee issues do not become legal issues, bottom line. And then, you probably don't need to chat with somebody like me, which is not something you want to do typically. Although that's what we're here to do, is help our small business employer clients stay out of trouble. Again, it's Scott Shibayama. If you'd like more information, feel free to visit us at visionlaw.com.